Welcome to Phesily, where we dive deep into one of the most intriguing chapters in rock and roll history. Today, we're uncovering the mystery of a heart that had carried the beat of an entire generation. So why did it suddenly stop? Conspiracies swirl, rumors bloom, and theories multiply. Was it really a simple heart failure, or was there something more labyrinthine at play? You've got to wonder, what is the story they never showed us? Before we dive into the details of this compelling enigma, make sure to hit that subscribe button to join us on this and other thrilling explorations into the lives of your favorite stars. It was a sweltering summer evening in Memphis, Tennessee, the kind that demands a cold drink and a lazy fan to stir the stagnant air. But Graceland was well accustomed to the heat. Elvis Presley's mansion boasted all the comforts that money could buy. And it was here that the king of rock and roll was gearing up for what seemed like just another routine night, blissfully unaware of its impending historical impact. Elvis had spent the bulk of the day tending to his numerous commitments. Despite battling obesity, escalating drug use, and a grueling tour schedule, he still exhibited bursts of the talent and charisma that had cemented his iconic status. Friends and family who saw him that day remarked on his unusual restlessness, attributing it to nerves about the concert tour kicking off in just a few days. As dusk fell, Elvis had a brief meeting with his fiancée, Ginger Alden, and then played a game of racquetball with his cousin Billy Smith. Billy later recalled that Elvis appeared more jovial and relaxed than he had in weeks. After the game, the two made their way to the piano near the racquetball court. Elvis began to play and sang Blue Eyes Crying in the Rain. His voice enveloped the room in a deep, inexplicable sadness. It was a simple moment, like countless others they had shared, but it would be the last song Elvis ever sang. Leaving the court, Elvis told Ginger he was heading to his office to handle some paperwork. His office, a repository of mementos from a lifetime of fame, was one of the few places in Graceland where he could find solitude. With so much on his mind, his deteriorating health, the burdens of fame, and the stark contrast between his public persona and private struggles, Elvis had a lot to contemplate in the quiet of his sanctuary. Despite his astounding success, Elvis felt burdened by a crown he could never remove. Eventually, he returned to the bedroom he shared with Ginger long after midnight. He confided in her that he was struggling to sleep and needed his medication. For years, Elvis had depended on prescription drugs, often mixing sedatives and stimulants to manage his moods. Ginger, concerned yet familiar with his routine, watched as he swallowed a mixture of pills. "I'm going to the bathroom to read," he said, picking up a book on spiritualism. With a nod, Ginger watched him walk toward the bathroom, exchanging a worried glance but no words. He settled into a chair next to the toilet, opened his book, and slipped into a troubled sleep from which he would not awaken. By 2 p.m. the next afternoon, Ginger, puzzled by his absence, checked the bathroom. The door was slightly open. Pushing it further, she discovered him lifeless on the floor. Her screams for help filled the house, but attempts to revive him failed. Elvis was pronounced dead at 3:30 p.m. at Baptist Memorial Hospital. In the pantheon of American music, Elvis Presley remains an enduring figure, a legend whose influence transcends his genre and generation. Yet beneath the spectacle, the energetic performances, and the rhinestone-studded costumes, there was a man wrestling with personal demons that plagued him to his final moments. Understanding the enigma of Elvis's death requires recognizing the role of addiction, a persistent shadow that loomed large over his life. Born into poverty in Tupelo, Mississippi, Elvis's childhood was steeped in hardship, a burden he carried throughout his life. Though he soared to fame and achieved unprecedented success, the insecurities from his early years never fully dissipated. To cope with the stress, exhaustion, and anxiety that came with his skyrocketing fame, Elvis increasingly relied on prescription medication. These pills offered a temporary escape, a brief relief from the relentless pressures of fame and the constant demands of a public that viewed him not as a man, but as an emblem, an icon, a king. During the 1960s and 70s, Elvis Presley's dependence on drugs deepened. Initially prescribed medications for legitimate health concerns, he quickly succumbed to addiction. This was a time when the medical community liberally dispensed amphetamines, barbiturates, and other narcotics, often underestimating their long-term impacts. Elvis was surrounded by individuals, including doctors, handlers, and yes-men, who had a vested interest in keeping him functional, and the lucrative machine that was Elvis Presley operating at full tilt. His personal physician, Dr. George Nicopolis, infamously known as Dr. Nick, emerged as a key enabler when he started treating Elvis in 1967. He quickly became a permanent part of Elvis's entourage, prescribing a vast array of drugs like Demerol, Percodan, and Dilaudid under the guise of treating various ailments: insomnia, chronic pain, and the overwhelming stress of being Elvis. It was a destructive cycle: uppers to endure the grueling performances and public appearances, and downers to facilitate an escape into sleep. Dr. Nick claimed he was managing Elvis's addiction, yet the supply of pills continued, and Elvis continued consuming them. His entourage, known as the Memphis Mafia, witnessed the king's escalating dependence but felt powerless to act. Many depended financially on Elvis, and challenging him could jeopardize their livelihoods. Besides, Elvis was notoriously stubborn. Attempts to address his drug use were often met with dismissal or hostility. When you're the king, who dares to say no? As time passed, the physical consequences became starkly visible. Elvis gained weight, his voice lost some of its sparkle, and his performances grew increasingly erratic. Yet his charisma and undeniable talent allowed people to overlook these issues whenever he performed. It seemed that for the duration of a song, the years of drug abuse and the burdens of his fame temporarily lifted, maintaining the illusion of the vibrant king of rock and roll. But illusions, by their nature, are inherently fragile. On that fateful night in August 1977, the cocktail of medications in Elvis Presley's system proved more lethal than anyone had anticipated. When his heart stopped, it marked not only the end of a man, but also the crumbling of an image that had been meticulously crafted yet was perilously flawed. As the world grieved the loss of a legend, a peculiar undercurrent of disbelief began to emerge. In hushed tones behind closed doors, and eventually across the burgeoning landscape of the internet, people started to speculate. Did Elvis really die on that fateful night? Suspicion was fueled by the unusually swift embalming process and the closed casket at his funeral. Each minor discrepancy became a pillar in the elaborate conspiracy theories that speculated on the king's alleged demise. One prominent theory suggests that Elvis faked his own death to escape the relentless public scrutiny that dominated his life. Advocates of this theory cite the unbearable pressures he faced: grueling tour schedules, crushing expectations, and an increasingly public struggle with addiction. These unbearable burdens, they argue, compelled Elvis to choose a dramatic escape, a magician's final trick, disappearing to a life of anonymity. Others speculate that Elvis had become entangled in criminal activities and that staging his death was a strategic move to evade either the mafia or some other threatening entity. According to this narrative, Elvis had been an informant for the FBI on a criminal syndicate and feared retaliation. The notion of the rock and roll king leading a double life as an informant further fuels these speculative fires. Another theory focuses on financial motives, noting a surge in record sales after his death. Proponents suggest that Elvis staged his demise to rescue himself from the brink of bankruptcy. Despite his massive earnings, his finances were strained by a costly divorce, an opulent lifestyle, and diminishing profits as his star waned. Faking his death could have been a drastic business strategy to resolve his financial woes overnight. In death, his estate became more valuable than ever, making Elvis even more profitable posthumously. For those who believe in these theories, the idea that Elvis orchestrated the ultimate comeback, from financial peril to posthumous prosperity, seems almost plausible. Some even point to supposed sightings of Elvis in the years following his death as evidence of his continued existence. These sightings range from mundane scenarios, like Elvis being spotted buying a donut in Kalamazoo, to more fantastic claims, such as a bearded Elvis working as a groundskeeper at Graceland. These tales keep the legend alive, blurring the lines between reality and myth in the enduring saga of Elvis Presley. While these sightings often veer towards the absurd, they captivate those who are eager to believe that the king is still out there, alive and well. The notorious Elvis is alive tabloid industry has become a phenomenon in its own right, feeding into this fascination with features such as interviews with experts, forensic analyses, investigative reports, and even eyewitness accounts purporting to offer undeniable proof that Elvis faked his death. Despite often being written off as sensationalist drivel, these tabloids have attracted a large and eager audience. For some, embracing these conspiracy theories provides a form of comfort, a way to deny the mortality of someone who appeared larger than life. Elvis Presley, while mainstream as the king of rock and roll, was also deeply intrigued by the metaphysical and mystical realms. Those close to him knew that Elvis had an extensive library of books on spiritualism, astrology, and esoteric philosophies, interests that went beyond mere hobby. His engagement with the occult was a significant aspect of his life. This fascination adds another layer of mystery to the circumstances surrounding his premature death. Elvis frequently consulted astrologers and psychic mediums for both career guidance and personal insights. He was drawn to the teachings of theosophy, a spiritual movement that blends mystical and occultist philosophies, and delved into Eastern spirituality, seeking answers beyond what traditional religion could offer. His inner circle remembered his keen interest in topics such as reincarnation, alchemy, and the mystical significance of numbers and symbols. These esoteric interests provide a tantalizing context to the enigmatic end of a man who was as much a spiritual seeker as he was a cultural icon. Elvis Presley's personal library bore witness to his broad spiritual curiosities, holding texts from traditional Christian literature to the arcane works of Madame Blavatsky and Edgar Cayce. His interest in the occult becomes particularly fascinating when considering how some events in his life and career coincided with periods of astrological or mystical significance. For instance, Elvis's death during the dog days of summer, an era traditionally viewed as an ominous time when the veil between the physical and spiritual realms thins, adds a layer of mystique to his already enigmatic existence. While such connections could easily be brushed off as coincidental, they contribute to the narrative of a life shrouded in mystery. Could it be that Elvis's engagement with these mystical studies had a tangible impact on his fate? Did he dabble in practices or invite energies that adversely affected his well-being? Were there omens from the spiritual realms he explored that he misunderstood or overlooked? While purely speculative, these questions are not entirely dismissible given his deep involvement in esoteric practices. Moreover, did his beliefs in the mystical lead him to make life choices that contributed to his demise? Perhaps influenced by his forays into lesser-tread paths, Elvis might have engaged in rituals or made pacts seeking fame at the cost of longevity. Beyond his spiritual quests, Elvis's personal life, especially his relationships with women, also played a pivotal role in his narrative. His interactions with women ranged from deep emotional connections to transient romantic flings. Starting with Priscilla Beaulieu, whom he met when she was just 14, their relationship was anything but conventional, strained by his constant absences due to touring and acting. They eventually married and had a daughter, Lisa Marie, but Elvis's lifestyle and infidelities led to their divorce. Despite their separation, Priscilla remained a significant figure in his life, often expressing concern over his deteriorating health and dependency on prescription drugs. Then came Linda Thompson, a beauty queen who entered his life post his separation from Priscilla. Linda was a notably positive influence during a period when Elvis was deeply ensnared in addiction. She cared for him, attempted to guide him towards healthier habits, and provided emotional support. However, her stabilizing presence ultimately could not counteract his self-destructive tendencies, and the relationship ended as a result of his continued downward spiral. Elvis's complex relationships and mystical interests interwove to create a tapestry as intricate and compelling as his public persona, highlighting a life of profound contrasts and enduring enigmas. Amid these pivotal relationships were numerous others: actresses, singers, and fans who intermittently graced Elvis's life. Many of these liaisons were fleeting yet intense, providing him brief solace or physical comfort, but also contributing to the chaos that seemed to perpetually shroud his personal affairs. Some of these women have recounted tales of Elvis's apparent loneliness and vulnerability, starkly contrasting his dynamic stage persona. Reflecting on how these varied relationships impacted his final days reveals much about his life's complexity. Surrounded by fame's relentless pressures, the women who loved him offered both sanctuary and complication. Elvis's generosity and emotional openness, while endearing qualities, also rendered him vulnerable to the intricacies and pains of love and attachment. His relationships were a double-edged sword, sources of joy and stability, but also catalysts for emotional distress and distraction. Elvis's father, Vernon, often faced criticism for his handling of Elvis's finances. Though not ill-intentioned, Vernon was ill-equipped for the complexities of managing a multi-million-dollar estate. His judgment was likely clouded by his own grief following his wife's death, and he depended heavily on the so-called Memphis Mafia, Elvis's loyal but varied group of friends and associates. While some members of this group genuinely cared for Elvis's well-being, others indulged his less healthy habits. Vernon permitted this entourage considerable influence over Elvis, which significantly contributed to his downward spiral. Elvis's relationship with his daughter, Lisa Marie, was deeply affectionate yet complicated by his erratic lifestyle. Despite his frequent tours and commitments, Elvis deeply valued his role as a father, striving to be present for Lisa Marie, even as he battled personal demons. Lisa Marie was quite young at the time of Elvis's death, and while she couldn't have influenced her father's choices significantly, the impact of his death on her life was profound. The Presley family, with all its unconditional love, was also deeply entwined in the complexities of Elvis's life, marked by fame, pressure, and challenges. They were not contributors to his downfall. Rather, they too were affected by the extraordinary circumstances of extreme fame and public scrutiny. When Elvis Presley passed away on August 16, 1977, the world was stunned. His home, Graceland, swiftly transformed into a public shrine, overwhelmed by fans, media, and onlookers. This private sanctuary became the center of public mourning and scrutiny. Behind closed doors, a flurry of activity ensued as family, friends, and advisors dealt with the immediate fallout of his demise. Vernon Presley, Elvis's father, was thrust into an overwhelming role. The same hands that had built Elvis's first guitar now had to navigate autopsies, funeral arrangements, and a multitude of legal matters concerning the Presley estate. Overwhelmed by grief, Vernon leaned heavily on the Memphis Mafia for support, a group equally shaken by disbelief and grief, now forced to face the reality that their leader, friend, and for some, their source of livelihood, was no longer there. The funeral for Elvis Presley was hastily arranged, occurring just 2 days after his death on August 18th. The family, overwhelmed by grief and the magnitude of the occasion, chose a private ceremony, open only to close family and friends. However, even this intimate gathering faced disruptions when thieves attempted to steal Elvis's body, prompting a swift change in plans to enhance security. The ceremony unfolded under a shroud of heightened tension, starkly contrasting the usual jubilation that surrounded the king of rock and roll. As the funeral rites concluded, the legal disputes began. Elvis will appointed his father, Vernon, as the executor and trustee of his estate, with his only child, Lisa Marie, named as the primary beneficiary. The valuation of the estate, complicated by various assets and liabilities, became a point of contention. Vernon found himself navigating a labyrinth of legal and financial challenges, including estate taxes and the significant debts Elvis had accumulated. Management of Elvis's posthumous career also fell to his surviving family members. In a decision that would profoundly impact the Presley legacy, Vernon sold the rights to his son's music catalog to raise funds for the estate. Later, Graceland was transformed into a museum, ensuring a steady income stream and solidifying Elvis's status as a cultural icon, even in death. Over 4 decades since Elvis's passing, his influence remains as potent as it was at the height of his career. Elvis Presley, who single-handedly transformed American music and culture, has left an enduring legacy that seems impervious to the passage of time. He has become more than a mere performer. He is enshrined in the realm of myth, symbolizing an era and a lifestyle that fused diverse musical genres, blues, country, gospel, into what is now universally recognized as rock and roll. Elvis's music not only survives, it flourishes, continually attracting new fans across generations. His albums continue to sell, his songs rack up millions of streams, and his films are still watched and treasured. With the rise of the internet, Elvis's performances have been immortalized on platforms like YouTube, where clips of his concerts attract millions of views. Additionally, his music has found a new life in the digital era, sampled by contemporary artists and featured in the soundtracks of movies and television shows, ensuring that his melodies linger in our collective memory. Graceland, once the home of Elvis Presley and now a museum, has become a pilgrimage site for fans worldwide. Each year, an estimated 500,000 visitors pass through its gates, not merely to reminisce but to connect with a legend. Graceland serves as a time capsule, a tangible space where people can feel the remnants of Elvis's life and dreams. His cultural influence stretches beyond music, permeating the broader American ethos. Elvis's distinct style, his fashion choices, his iconic hair, and his famous hip gyrations has been etched into American iconography. His blend of various musical genres acted as a catalyst for breaking down racial barriers in a segregated America. By drawing inspiration from black musicians and introducing their sounds to mainstream American households, he played a role, perhaps unintentionally, in advancing the civil rights movement, prompting the nation to address its own divisions and biases. Additionally, Elvis has become a subject of academic interest, analyzed by sociologists, musicologists, and historians who aim to decode the American landscape of the 20th century. He has inspired an array of books, documentaries, and even college courses, with his life and death providing rich narratives that delve into fame, addiction, talent, and the pursuit of the American dream. In death, as in life, Elvis remains a figure of fascination, enigma, and reverence. The myriad conspiracy theories about his demise and his ongoing presence in popular culture add layers of intrigue to an already remarkable life story. Tribute artists and impersonators continue to channel this spirit, mimicking his style and voice in performances that span from Las Vegas to Tokyo. Thus, while Elvis Presley, the man, may have left the building, Elvis the icon, the legend, and the king remains ever present. Elvis's legacy transcends his role as a pioneering musician and a magnetic performer. It embodies the legacy of a figure who captured the complexities, aspirations, and contradictions of an entire nation. His enduring impact is a testament to a cultural icon who not only shaped but was shaped by the society he influenced, leaving a mark that continues to evolve while remaining deeply ingrained in the fabric of the culture he helped define. For more insights into the lives and secrets of the stars, don't forget to subscribe to Phesily. Join us as we unravel more mysteries of the celebrity world. Until next time, keep the legacy alive.